they don't want to answer questions at all. So I want to play for you this entire interaction. This is Trey Gowdy, and I believe Trey Gowdy is asking a very fair question, and it is about the war in Ukraine, the Russia-Ukraine war right now. And, you know, he asked a very, very, what I think is a very fair question, which is, hey, if you're president on day one, what are you going to do? What do you think about this war? What are you going to do? So have a listen to this exchange, and I got to tell you, Ron DeSantis, his answer is mesmerizing, even by his standards and Republicans today. Listen to this.
All right, you wore the uniform. If you are elected president, you may be the first one in a while to have worn the uniform. How would you address the ongoing war in Eastern Europe between Russia and Ukraine on day one of a Ron DeSantis presidency?
Well, first, I think what we need to do as a veteran is recognize that our military has become politicized. You talk about gender ideology, you talk about things like global warming that they're somehow concerned in. That's not the military that I served in. We need to return our military to focusing on commitment, focusing on the core values and the core mission. That would be something that I could take care of on day one. There'll be a new sheriff in town as commander-in-chief, and I think you'll see recruiting start to get back to where it needs to be because people don't want to join a woke military, and I think it's been really, really problematic. Look, in terms of what's going on over in Eastern Europe, I'd like to see a settlement of this. I do not want to see a wider war. I think it's completely unknowable what it will look like in January of 2025, but I would not want to see the United States with our troops get enmeshed in a war in Russia or in Ukraine.
Great answer, Ron. That's a great answer. Because that's the answer that all Republicans have these days when it comes to anything. Just bring up wokeness. That's your answer when it comes. Okay, let's kind of go back here for a second. Trey Gowdy is asking Ron DeSantis on the day that he announces that he's running for president, what would you do on day one if you're president when it comes to the war in Ukraine? By the way, almost 400,000 innocent people have died. And the first thing that Ron DeSantis brings up is gender identity and global warming. How could anybody vote for this guy for president of the United States? Let me repeat. We're talking about almost 400,000 individuals that have been killed in this war. He's asked, what would you do on day one to end it? And his first go-to thing that he brings up, which is what so many people on the far right bring up, is gender ideology, transgenders, and global warming, which, by the way, has absolutely nothing to do with the question that was asked, which is how are you going to end this war? And the only other thing he says, with, by the way, no solutions, because Republicans these days have literally no solutions to any of the problems facing this country or perhaps a war in another country, in this case, Russia and Ukraine. The only other thing he says is, quote, I'd like to see a settlement. Very good, Mr. President, Mr. DeSantis, Mr. President. Day one, I'm going to say, I'd like to see a settlement. Call up Vladimir Putin and say, Mr. Putin, I'd like to see a settlement. I'm sure that'll work. And then you have Donald Trump. And Ron DeSantis' answer was much worse than even Donald Trump. I can't believe I'm saying this. Remember when Donald Trump was asked about this in that joke of a CNN town hall? And his response was, if I'm president again, I will end the war in 24 hours. Doesn't say how he's going to do it. What are you going to do? You're going to call up Vladdy? Hey, Vladdy, I promised people in the town hall that we would end this thing. Can we end it, please, within 24 hours? Donald Trump didn't say how he was going to do it. Ron DeSantis doesn't have any answers, but, they want to be president of the United States. Donald Trump wants to be president again. What is the infatuation with these people on the far right, these idiots? Let me be very clear. Ron DeSantis is an idiot. He's not very intelligent. He doesn't transcend with regular, everyday people. He has no personality. He's extremely stupid. Ron DeSantis is not a smart guy. Okay, I'm not Albert Einstein either, but if I'm running for president, and let's just say I don't have any answers as to how to end this war. By the way, I think there are some things you can do to help possibly end the war, but you're not going to end it within 24 hours. The way that I would answer that question, and I'm just off the top of my head right now, even if I don't want to answer the question, here's what I would say. I would say, this is horrible. This is a travesty. Innocent people are dying every day. We don't want to see war anywhere in the world. We certainly don't want to see it with our allies in the Ukraine. We want this war to end. Not only is it very expensive, but innocent people are dying by the day. Vladimir Putin invaded this country. It's wrong. It's terrible. He's committed war crimes. He's a criminal. And as a country, we need to do everything we need to do to protect our allies, but also end this war and end it fast. And I'll do everything in my power on day one as the President of the United States to do that. Notice how I didn't give any specifics on how I'm going to do that. There's a way you can answer the question without answering the question, if that makes sense. We all know, for the most part, that most people, unless you're maybe Tucker Carlson or a right-wing idiot who's pro-Russia, just about everybody agrees that this needs to be settled and the war needs to be over. Innocent people are dying. It's costing money. It's costing innocent lives. We all agree on that. You need to give a little bit more than that, Ronnie. But that's what these people on the far right do. If Ron DeSantis is president of the United States, Mr. President, what are we going to do about inflation? Well, I think the first thing we need to do is go after the transgenders. Mr. President, what are we going to do about health care? You know, a lot of Republicans have a problem with Obamacare. What are we going to do to solve, all the health care issues in this country? Well, the first thing I would do is talk about global warming and, let's get rid of these transgenders and this gender ideology. Okay, well, I'm not sure what that has to do with what I asked you. Mr. President, Mr. DeSantis, what are we going to do about the border? You know, a lot of people say the border is wide open. Well, we got to do something about gender ideology first. I mean, this is the way this guy answers questions. It's mesmerizing. And it is mesmerizing that there are people out there like the Victor Jocks, who calls himself a journalist, who's a joke. The RJ must be very proud to have a guy like Victor Jocks. He's on the jock of Ron DeSantis. He has some weird fetish for Ron DeSantis. How do you support Ron DeSantis when he answers a question like that? We're not talking about a blunder. We're talking about a very, very serious situation. A war that should have never happened at the hands of an evil, murderous dictator in Vladimir Putin. And you're asked on day one, if you're president, what are you going to do about this war? And you bring up transgenders? What the hell does that have to do with the war? And by the way, who cares what is between your legs? There are so many Republicans out there that care so much about what's between your legs. What about serving your country and risking your life for this country? Don't you think that's a little bit more important than whether you're a transgender or not, or whether you call yourself a man or a woman? Who cares? You're risking your life for the country. What does it matter whether you call yourself a man or a woman? I don't understand why people are so obsessed with this issue. That's all they talk about on Fox News. That's all they talk about on these right-wing networks is transgenderism. You know, I'm driving into work today, and don't even ask me why, but I'm listening to a conservative radio station this morning as I'm driving into work. Are they talking about the war in Ukraine? Are they talking about health care? Are they talking about the disaster that was Ron DeSantis last night? No. You know what they were talking about? They were talking about how Target is selling gay merchandise or pro-gay merchandise. And they were saying, gosh, they put this stuff in our face. So because there's merchandise being sold at Target that is, I don't know, gender neutral or pro-gay, pro-LGBTQ, that's pushing it in your face? I don't understand the way these people think. I don't understand. Now, if somebody is in your face literally and saying, hey, you need to buy some of this stuff, you need to buy some of these gay shirts, you need to buy some of this pro-transgender stuff, yes, that would be putting stuff in your face. But because there's a section in Target that is selling this type of merchandise, you consider that as, quote, putting it in your face? Guess what? This is a free country. If you don't want to go to that section or buy some of that merchandise, whether it be a shirt or a hat or whatever, then you could walk past that section and go to the section that you want to go to. Why is that so hard for some of you people to understand? Why is that so hard? Nobody's putting anything in your face. Guess what? If there's a gay pride parade and you don't support gay people, then you don't have to go to the parade. You can go about your business and go about your day, and nobody is shoving anything in your face. Because guess what? I don't want to see two men kissing each other any more than I want to see a man and a woman kissing each other.